Knoth Clipper, hi friends, Darth Momo here, and we're finally going to do a video that I've been waiting almost a year to do. It's going to be, we're going to rank all the Star Wars canon books that I've read on an S tier chart, which is a lot. Excluding the High Republic, I've read probably a majority of the novels and a decent amount of the young adult novels. I don't know how many there are of those, but I've got on here maybe 50 something books, a couple reference books, but most of them are the novels. So yeah, I've read a lot over the years. I've got it organized in the order that I've read them, more or less release order, but I'm maybe about 90% confident in this. I'd checked some couple like online invoice history, but for the most part, I'm about 90% confident in this. There's just a couple I wasn't sure about, but yeah, I got into the new canon shortly after it started. I picked up A New Dawn when it came out. I read it. I started reading it about a month after I got it, and then so I didn't read it before Rebels started, but I read it maybe once we were a couple episodes in, and spent about a month on it. And yeah, there's some hits, there's some misses, but overall, I've generally enjoyed the stories, and yeah, I'm excited to do this. So without further ado, the first one we're gonna look at is A New Dawn. Which, funny, the first book of the new canon is called A New Dawn. This was kind of the Hera Kanan origin story. I gave this one a B. So, real quick, I just want to say kind of my ranking order how I did this. So S tier is perfect. No complaints whatsoever. A is just shy of the perfect. It's overall really solid. Just a few minor issues, but generally, yeah, I'd still give that an A tier. B is, for the most part, mostly good. Some parts were slogged or some things I didn't like, but overall good. C is 50-50, maybe about whether it was, I enjoyed one half of the book and didn't like the other half, or overall enjoyed about 50% of it, 50% of it was just kind of a meh. D is, yeah, for the most part, didn't really care for it, but a few redeeming qualities. And then F is, get that out of here. That was a chore to get through. So yeah, the A New Dawn, I'm putting in B. I know it took me a little while to get through, but I think part of that was also just because it was this is the second time I'd read a full-on Star Wars adult novel. The first one being the Darth Plagueis book. So might have been a little bit of a challenge for me at the time just because it was newer to me, but I remember overall liking the villain, liking the characters, etc. So yeah, that one's a B tier for me. And keep in mind, some of these I've read recently, some of these, it's been, oh gosh, maybe 10 years since I've touched some of these, so I'm going off of memory. I did a few YouTube reviews of some of these, so I went back and watched those just to refresh, to get my in-the-moment thoughts, but I'm working off of memory of a lot of these. Tarkin, I'm going to put that in D tier. I do remember having some moments I liked, but overall, I remember it being really difficult to get through. So next we're going to go Heir to the Jedi. Fun fact, this is the only one I actually don't own. Or the only novel I don't own. I rented this from the library. And all in all, it was all right. There was parts where it was kind of a drag, or there was parts I found a little frustrating. But there was lots of stuff that I enjoy. I remember by the way, these are all going to be spoilers. That should go without saying. But yeah, there was a moment at the end where Luke just kind of has a moment to himself where he's able to just kind of break down and process everything, kind of have a moment where he can just cry for the loss of Obi-Wan, the loss of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and a character he meets in the book. And I remember that moment really, I enjoyed that. That's something I still think about from time to time. So, yeah, all in all, I think that one was probably C tier. The next is actually the first reference book. This is the one of two books I don't own. This is the only reference book I don't own. I rented this from the library because I thought it was kind of cool. But I'm going to put that in C tier just because this was as the canon was really starting. So it's got a lot of stuff from, the movies, and the Clone Wars, but that's it. Like, it has Rebels Season 1, and then it says, like, the main 6 characters from the original trilogy will be in Episode 7, just because that was already, like, confirmed. Otherwise, that's it. So all in all, it's kind of cool, an idea, but there was so little to it that it was like, okay, Next is Lords of the Sith. I'm going to put that one in C tier as well. I remember, kind of liking it, but also there were some moments where it was kind of boring. Yeah, and that's all I remember. I think I remember enjoying Cham Syndulla, but at the same time, it was like, well, where's Hera and all this, or his wife. Um, so yeah, that one was that was C tier. It was all right. And same with the next one we're gonna do, Aftermath. I had a lot more positive things to say about the next two Aftermath books, but this one, it was all right. This is the origin story for the trilogy and a lot of these characters, so it was as everything came together. Took me a little longer to get through it, but there was definitely moments. I remember telling my friends like, "Oh yeah, there was a small little interlude chapter that had Han and Chewie," and I laughed once or twice out loud at just some of Han's lines or something. So all in all, like it wasn't bad, but it's just it wasn't as good as some of the other ones on the list. Next is Weapon of a Jedi, The Weapon of a Jedi, a Luke Skywalker adventure. I put this one in, where did I put it? I think a C tier. It was all right, but it was very self-contained. It had Luke, R2 and C-3PO were there, and then, what was his name? His name was like Sarko Plank or something. He was some background character from Maz's castle in Force Awakens. It takes place on the planet Deveron, and that's it. It's just these four guys. So I mean, it was all right. There was bits I enjoyed it. I remember though thinking like it felt like it was kind of having a contrary narrative in a way to Heir to the Jedi. They both felt like they were trying to be like Luke's next steps after A New Hope, and it's nothing that outright contradicts each other. Like you can make them work, but it's still kind of like, this feels like these were meant to be like two separate like next step stories, right? That kind of like somewhat clash, if not, outright clash. But overall, like it was all right. It was fine. I didn't hate it or anything. Next is Dark Disciple. I'm gonna put that in A tier. Oh, I don't know why I did that. There we go, A tier. It's a Clone Wars novel. I love the Clone Wars. No surprise for anybody that follows my channel. So yeah, this was a fun book. I really loved this one, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff I remember enjoying. Like I love that Anakin and Obi-Wan played a part in it. It took me a minute just to kind of get into Quinlan and Ventress, just because, I mean, by this point I had read some of the Quinlan comics, so I was familiar with his character, but at the same time, like, these weren't, like, my favorite go-to characters. When I think of Clone Wars, you think of Anakin, Obi-Wan, etc. So, and, these are new environments, too, and they're just kind of these two off by themselves doing their own thing, but, yeah, as time went on, like, I really got into this book, and I love it. Little shame with what we've done since with undermining Ventress's sacrifice in Bad Batch and Tales of the Underworld, but yeah, this book was solid. This was, any Clone Wars fan, highly recommend this book. In fact, any book in the A tier, I definitely recommend. Next, we're gonna go the Force Awakens novelization. I'm gonna put that in C tier. That was the first time I'd read like, I don't know why I did that. That was the first time I'd read like an actual movie novelization. I'd kind of like read parts of the Revenge of the Sith book, but I kind of read it out of order. Yeah, that's the first time I full on sat down and read a movie novelization, and I mean it was all right. I remember it taking a little bit to get through, but I mean it's basically the film. There is some extra parts in there that I did like that don't really work so well now that we've got the rest of the trilogy. I did like that it kind of followed Poe's story a bit. It bridged some gaps. But I wouldn't say this is like a Revenge of the Sith style treatment. I wouldn't say that like, hey, if you like the movie, definitely read the novel. It was kind of just the novel, but a tad more fleshed out. Next, we're going to go Before the Awakening. I'm going to give this one a C tier. I remember thinking there were some things that felt like they kind of contradicted Force Awakens, like Finn. He had one small like battle or mission before the events of the Force Awakens, but I'm like, well, wait, in the movie, didn't it say like, this was his first battle, right? And then Poe, we know how well some of that's kind of aged with the retcons from Rise of Skywalker. I think all in all, you can make it work, but I mean, it was all right. It was kind of fun to read, but at the same time, like, I remember there's some parts, especially like the Rey story. Rey just really focused on her. She was kind of the main character. Her story, there wasn't really any other side characters, maybe a couple. So all in all, like, it was all right, but it's really just meant to set up the Force Awakens. So it's not like something that stands on its own. And like I said, with a lot of these earlier ones, like if I read these all again, like right now, I might have some different takes. I don't know. Next, we're going to go Bloodline, and I'm going to throw that in A tier. all in all, that was a really solid book, and there was a lot of fun stuff in there. It's a political thriller, but I really enjoyed it. It was really well written. Claudia Gray, I think, has done some really good Star Wars stories in the new canon. I really love what they do with Leia, and I like that Han's a big part of the book. Ben's not around. Ben's off with Luke. It's around that same point in time when he would have fallen from the dark side, or fallen to the dark side. Yeah, all in all, it was a really solid book. I love the new character it introduced, Ransom Casterfoe. I'm a little bit more mixed on what comes later because I really liked how his story ended here. But yeah, like I said, really really solid book. And if you're a fan of the sequel era, or if you want some more context of the sequel era, easily the go-to recommendation. Next we're gonna go Aftermath Life Debt. I'm gonna put that one in, I think, B tier. I remember liking that a bit more. It had some good moments, especially towards the end. I really love the third act of the book. Han and Chewie play a big part in the story, if I remember correctly, so that was fun. And again, like now, the first one, it was the setup of all the different characters because they all had to kind of come together. This one, it's, all right, we've got all our characters together, cool, now let's send them on the mission, let's let them cook, let's let them work together. And it was a lot more fun to watch. Next, we're going to go the Ahsoka book. I'm going to put that one in C tier. I mean, it was all right. I'm not the biggest person, biggest fan of Ahsoka. I don't hate Ahsoka. She's fine, but I'm not like, oh, Ahsoka's one of my top 10 Star Wars characters. So, especially since this book was relatively detached, I think probably the parts I enjoyed the most was with Bail Organa. Although I do have to say, like, that moment where she reunites with R2-D2, beautiful. I remember really liking that scene, chapter, whatever you want to, however you describe that for a book. But yeah, all in all, like, it was fine, but I wouldn't say, like, it was, okay, mostly good, just some minor criticisms. It was just, it was all right. Didn't really care for the new original characters. Although I do have to say this is frustrating with how this bumps up with Tales of the Jedi and, all what Tales of the Jedi did to the book. Next, we're going to go Catalyst. I'm going to put that one, I think, in C tier as well. Maybe back in the day I might have put that in B. I don't know. I don't really remember too much about how I thought about the book. I remember definitely going into Rogue One, like, it gave me much more of a connection to, Jin's parents, Galen and Lyra. So when they died, it was like, oh, shoot. Like, when Galen died, I was like, wow, that was kind of sad. Or when, like, Lyra died, everybody else was just like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, oh, well, shucks, I kind of like that character. I do remember, though, one part I really liked is there was a chapter that described that scene in Revenge of the Sith that has, like, Vader and and Palpatine looking the Death Star. So I remember, like, reading that scene, I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I went and listened to the music from the scene. But yeah, all in all, probably C tier. But maybe I might have read that and put that in B tier. I don't know. Like I said, it's been, almost 10 years since the book came out, since I would have read it. Next, we're going to go the Rogue One novelization. I think I put that in D tier. I think that was, I love the movie Rogue One, but I think I remember the novel being much more of a trudge to kind of get through. It wasn't bad by any means, but yeah, it was just harder to, it's basically the movie on paper, Next was Aftermath Empire's End. So based off, I did a YouTube review for this, and based off watching that, I think I'm going to put that in B tier as well. I think I had just enough criticisms to where I probably wouldn't have put that in A tier. But all in all, I enjoyed the book, and I liked how it closed out the Aftermath trilogy and kind of the time in between Jedi and the Battle of Jakku era. Next, we're going to go Thrawn. I'm going to put that in A tier, easily. I almost would put that in S tier. Almost. But, I just... Yeah, I think some of the... Because Governor Price, Orinda, she's a big character in the book, too, and there's a lot of point of view chapters for her, and I just remember some of those earlier on just being kind of a drag to get through. Later on, once it became more entwined with Thrawn's story, I liked that a lot more, but just initially, yeah, I didn't really care for it, those earlier chapters, so that's just enough to knock it down from S tier into an A tier. Okay, so next, yeah, I had almost like a year gap in between reading these books, so that was when I was going through all the, my high school conversion story with the LDS church, so I didn't really focus too much on the Star Wars books around that time, but yeah, that the next one would be Thrawn Treason. Or not, Thrawn Alliances, sorry. I'm going to put that in B tier. Overall, I enjoyed it, but after I did a YouTube review of this one as well, and after rewatching it, it looked like I did have enough criticisms to where I probably would classify that as B tier, but overall, it was a solid book, and I definitely enjoyed it. I think I like the first two Thrawn books a lot more than the last one. Which, coincidentally, that's our next one. So again, I went a whole year without reading a Star Wars book, and then Thrawn Treason. That was a C tier. I didn't really get into the stories much with that one. I remember also being really disappointed because I was hoping for some sort of tease for what happened after the Rebels finale, and there was nothing. It just led straight into that. Yeah, it was just, it was fine. I still liked some of the stuff it did with Thrawn, but I didn't like it as much. Next is the Ultimate Star Wars book. It's another reference book. This one I'm going to put in B, just because this one, I love this a lot more, because the canon had some time to grow. So now we had, a couple of the Disney movies in there. We had all of Rebels. We had the first season of Resistance. And I think Forces of Destiny was in there too. And then they touched on the EU stuff a little bit. So yeah, this one I liked a lot more. Just a lot to read there. Next is Resistance Reborn. So I think all in all with this one, I think I had this one in B tier as well. Generally, I liked it. I think I didn't wholeheartedly love it, but all in all, it was a good book and I enjoyed it. It set up Rise of Skywalker nice. Next is the Star Wars Rebels Servants of the Empire book. It's the first one, Edge of the Galaxy or something like that. It's a what we call, I guess, a chapter book for grade school. I bought it just because when my Safeway store was closing, we had it marked down, and I think it was in a little box of books, and it was $2. So I was like, why the heck not? It was all right. I put it in C tier. I had a fun time with it, but it wasn't anything amazing or anything. Next is the Rise of Skywalker novelization, and I'm gonna put that in C tier as well. I did a YouTube review for that one. And I did say in my YouTube review, yeah, this was a fun ride, but I also had a lot of criticisms. And in general, again, this is the novelization, so I have to hold it, somewhat accountable for the story that the film chose. And while I think ultimately this probably presents the story of the film better, it's just, I still can't get behind the story. But like I said, this was a fun ride in a way, so I think that's why I'll put it in C tier. But there was things that the novel did that explain the film that I didn't like, and things that it explained that I did like. So, yeah, probably C tier on that one. Next, we're going to go The Last Jedi book. I'm going to put that in B tier. I really like The Last Jedi, and the novelization made me love it even more. This is a really good novelization. While I'd previously held off on recommending The Force Awakens unless you really wanted to get into it, I would definitely recommend Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi's novelizations for... whether you wanted a different take on those stories or you like the movies, whatever. I would definitely say they're more akin to Revenge of the Sith style treatments for those films. I really love the Last Jedi novelization. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And, it got to include the deleted scenes from The Last Jedi, which I think did nothing but especially the Luke deleted scenes, did nothing but benefit. And there was some stuff that it just added some extra stuff with Luke that made me love it even more. So yeah, this is a really good novelization. You know what? Actually, what the heck? I'll put that in A tier. I loved it. Next, we're gonna go Master and Apprentice, a Qui-Gon Obi-Wan story. I think I'm gonna put that in C tier. It was fun, but there were some moments where it kind of, I think we'll put that in B tier. There were some moments where it kind of dragged a little bit, but overall it was fun to follow Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. They're fun characters. I love these two. Especially at this point in age, or point in the timeline at their lives. So yeah, it dived into some of the prophecy stuff, which was fun too. Next, we're gonna go from a certain point of view. Initially, I was gonna put this in B tier or in C tier, but I might put it in B tier. Yeah, we're gonna put it in B tier. There was a lot of stuff in the cantina where it kind of dragged, where it kind of got a bit too much. It's like, all right, come on, we get it. Like, how many cantina characters are we gonna follow? But there was a lot of good stuff in this. I love like the Qui-Gon chapter, the Obi-Wan chapter, the Yoda chapter, the Palpatine chapter. There was one. I used to be a really big fan of the sequel era. I didn't really buy into the criticisms that they kind of undermined the original trilogy. I was just kind of looking at them as movies, not necessarily how they functioned as sequels to the original films. And there was a story in here with a character from Alderaan, and it ends with him sending his baby to Alderaan, thinking like war's coming, like you'll be safe on Alderaan, and that's before the Death Star blows up. And I just sat there and I'm like, wow. And that's when it kind of hit me, like that kid just like died, but it was all for nothing because, right, we have the sequels down the road. We just go through this all again, and I was kind of like, oh, I see the problem. So yeah, it really had some impacts and ramifications for me and my thoughts on the sequels going forward after this. But yeah, all in all, I think there's more good than bad in this book, but there are some stories where it's kind of like, all right, guys, come on. Next, though, Dooku Jedi Lost. I think we're going to put that in A tier. I really loved getting to follow Dooku's story, and I had a blast reading this book, and it was nice and easy because it was just, an audio drama, but I got the physical version, right? So it was just the script. Really easy to follow and read, and a really great story. I really enjoyed it. Next, we're going to go Last Shot. This was an F. This was a struggle to get through. I struggled so hard. I did not care for Last Shot whatsoever. I'm sorry, but yeah, this is an F for me. Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. That's an S tier. That is without a doubt, I think it's my second favorite Star Wars book. I would probably say Revenge of the Sith is my favorite. But as far as the new canon goes and the Disney era, top tier, favorite one. This was, I didn't expect to, get into this so much. But, this was in 2020 when, COVID was happening, right? I was still working, but I had a lot more downtime. And, there was the stimulus checks, right? So I'm like, what the heck? Why not? Like, I've been kind of lax on the Star Wars books the last couple of years. Like, let's get into them. And that's why in 2020 I read a lot of Star Wars books. And I think that's actually probably the year I read the most Star Wars books. And Lost Stars, I was like, you know what? I've heard a lot of people praise this. What the heck? Why not? Let's try it. And oh my gosh, I could not put this book down. Like, I think I ended up taking a camping trip around the time I had this, and I had some buddies that were supposed to go with me, but they ended up backing out last minute. So just I went up and I brought my book, and I zoomed through a lot of it just because, I read some, and I don't want to put it down. I want to keep reading. I loved it so much. This was such a good book. If I had to recommend one Star Wars book, besides Revenge of the Sith, I think that's a good one to kind of ease your toes into what's, a Star Wars book can be. But it also sets the bar real high. But if I had to pick one just non-Star Wars film-related book, of course, I would recommend Lost Stars to anyone. It's really solid. Next is the Clone Wars Stories of Light and Dark. I'm going to put that in C tier. Like, it was fine. I love the Clone Wars, so I'm reading Clone Wars stories. Like, it was fine. But it wasn't like it was anything special or amazing or anything. Next was, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to put that in B tier as well. I like that one more than the A New Hope one just because this one I thought had a much better balance. I remember enjoying a lot more of the stories and not really disliking anything or just kind of rolling my eyes. I thought there was a good balance across the whole film. It wasn't like, okay, we're just going to focus all our all our time on the cantina. Especially because, like, there was cantina stories that were, like, contradicting each other. Whereas Empire Strikes Back didn't really have that issue. And overall, there was, like I said, there was good stuff. I loved, like, the Yoda chapter, the Obi-Wan chapter, the Palpatine chapter, etc. Next was Light of the Jedi. This one, yeah, I'm going to put it in D tier. And this is the main reason why I didn't get into the High Republic. I was interested. There was some stuff about the High Republic that I was like, a lot of, like, the identity politics stuff was kind of a turnoff. But, this had the potential to be, like, the big, it was the multimedia project for the new canon. And I thought it could be fun to get into. So I gave it a shot, and I read Light of the Jedi, and I just, it wasn't, like, awful. It wasn't F tier. It wasn't a failure by any means, but I couldn't get into it. maybe it's because I need like some sort of connection to ease into it. I need either like new characters but similar setting, or I need uh, new settings but familiar characters. And the fact that or a lot of the Jedi in the High Republic is new characters, new setting, it was difficult to get into. And yeah, I struggled. I know there's some people that really love this book, and I tried, and it wasn't for me. So that's why I didn't continue on with the High Republic. Part of me is kind of grateful I didn't, because there's just so much there. So that not only would have been more money to follow up on, but then that would have been just so much more content. So it was a lot easier to then spend my time on, the free time I did have on the Skywalker Saga era stories. Next is Skywalker Family at War. It's like the biography book of, all three trilogies, the main Skywalker characters. I'm going to put that in A tier. I had a blast reading this, and I really appreciated how it shined, not just the light and the way it, tackled the prequel trilogy story, but I love the ways that, like, it showed how, like, the original trilogy informed the prequel story. Yeah, this was fun, and I thought this was a unique idea, and I'm really glad they did it, and I'd recommend it for people. Next is Queen's Peril. This is a Phantom Menace era story. So I skipped out on Queen Shadow. It was the first Padme one. It takes place between episodes 1 and 2, but I really love the Phantom Menace, so I'm like, well, this crosses over with the Phantom Menace. So I think like the year after it came out, I'm like, yeah, you know what the heck, let's pick it up. And I liked it. I didn't wholeheartedly love it. This was an A tier, but overall I remember liking it. And yeah, I think I'll put that one in B tier. Next is Queen's Hope. So I went another, I think, a year or so without reading Star Wars books. I got Queen's Hope and Brotherhood when they came out. I was really excited to read these, especially because like I heard Queen's Hope kind of led into Brotherhood. So Queen's Hope, I'm gonna give that a B. It was all right. Padme isn't my favorite character, so I much more enjoyed like the Anakin side of things whenever it dabbled on that. But I really like how it kind of led into Brotherhood and helped set it up. So yeah, I'm gonna put a B tier on that one. And although, no, I didn't really care for the transgendered clone thing, and it's not enough for me to go, this book's bad, because I liked everything else, and same with Brotherhood, but it's still one of those things where I rolled my eyes, and I'm like, I really could have done without this. This is stupid, but whatever. Next is the Brotherhood book. I'm going to put that in A tier. I think some of the Canon story, like following that, I think her name was Rune or something, that Kato Nemoidian character, that was probably enough to keep it out of S tier for me, especially earlier on, but I really loved Anakin's storyline, I really loved Obi-Wan's storyline, I love when they came together. This felt like it could have been, 4 episodes of the Clone Wars, and I really like how it bridged the gap between Attack of the Clones and the Clone Wars film. Yeah, I'd recommend this for any Clone Wars fan, this and Dark Disciple. Next is, it's a kind of a reference book, kind of not, it's called Star Wars Year by Year. It is kind of like, it takes like everything that happened, whether it's like, major developments in films, release dates for films, books, etc. A lot of pop culture stuff too for Star Wars, and it just gives it in a timeline order from like 1973 when George first thought of Star Wars, maybe even a little bit of his earlier life, all the way up to 2021 with the Book of Boba Fett show. And I put that's an S tier. I loved reading that and just seeing the history kind of Star Wars. And all the little nitty gritty stuff too, like, like the EU, or when things first started ramping up for prequel trilogy EU material, or like the Droids cartoons. I loved reading this. This was a blast. Next it's called Star Wars, either Galactic Maps or Galactic Atlas. It was a gift from my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife. It was alright. It's kind of cool. It kind of just has like, each page is like a map of a world, and it's got little different events. So, I mean, all in all, like, I kind of like the look of it. It's kind of cool, but, yeah, it did, especially because this was back in, like, when the canon was just starting, so it had, like, Force Awakens, Rebels Season 1, and maybe, I think, like, Jedha for Rogue One. So, there wasn't too much substance to it. I think initially I put it in D, but it's kind of a cool idea. I'll put it in C. Next is going to be Battles Across the Galaxy. It's another reference book. It basically like takes each like major galaxy or major book or battle and in a timeline order, of course, and it kind of charts like the different strategies and tactics and outcomes and things like that. It was kind of a cool idea. I'm gonna put it in C tier though. There were some battles that were a little. It was like, all right, come on, I get it. You know, it was cool though that it included stuff from like the animated shows and the comics, etc. Next, we're gonna go the Star Wars book. It's a reference book, kind of like an encyclopedia. A gift from my fiance at the time. It was all right. We'll put it in C tier. I don't have much to say about it. Next is the lightsaber collection book. I'm gonna put that in B tier. That was really cool. I liked seeing all the different lightsabers that had like, in-universe facts about it and the behind-the-scenes facts, and it had like close-up looks at it. And I love all the images too. And it pulled from like the animated shows, and I don't think it pulled from comics or anything. I think it pulled from the video games though, for sure. Next, we're gonna go Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view. I'm gonna put that one in C tier. That one was a bit more of a drag. There were some really solid stories in there, like the Anakin story. That was my favorite one. I loved that one. If that was a story by itself, I'd probably put that in S tier. But there was a lot of stuff, especially the Jabba's Palace stuff, where it kind of dragged on a bit. I think we spent the first like maybe third of the book at Jabba's Palace. It was like, all right, guys, come on. And a lot of it wasn't that interesting, too. It was just saying how, like, half these characters survived, especially since they show up in Boba Fett or the Mandoverse. Next, we're going to go to the Star Wars Timelines reference book. I'm going to put that in C tier. It was a really cool idea, and I liked it, and I learned some stuff, because, there's a lot of stories, or especially in the comics, that I haven't followed, or especially with the High Republic. So it was cool kind of getting a gist of it, but I wasn't the biggest biggest fan of how each page was constructed. You kind of had to like follow one line through and then, okay, go back and read another one, etc. I couldn't just move across the page. I kind of had to go like, it's kind of hard to describe it if you don't really know what I'm talking about. But there was parts where it was like, all right, come on, these parts don't interest me as much. But yeah, I read the whole thing overall. Yeah, it was kind of a cool idea. Next, we're going to go Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade. I'm going to put that in B tier. There were some parts where it kind of dragged, but overall, like, it was cool. I didn't read the comic with this character, it was kind of cool getting to see her story and read it, as a newcomer, not someone previously familiar with it. But yeah, I really liked how it took, like, it had her as a Padawan, her during the Clone Wars, and her in the Inquisitorius, and I thought it did a really good job saying how someone could be a Jedi and join the Inquisitorius. Next is Jedi Battle Scars, F. That was a chore to get through. I really struggled. And I was disappointed, because like I didn't play any of the Jedi games, but so I thought this would be a cool opportunity to get into these characters, and yeah, I struggled. This was really hard to get into. Next is Princess and the Scoundrel, and I'm going to put that one in B. I enjoyed that one. There were some parts where it kind of dragged, maybe in the middle act, but all in all, especially like that first act on Endor, I really love that stuff. And overall, yeah, it was fun, and I enjoyed it. And I feel like it's this canon's version of the whole courtship of Princess Leia. But yeah, it's a honeymoon story, and I know like it was meant to tie into the Star Cruiser, but it didn't feel like a walking advertisement for me. Like it was a story about Han and Leia on their honeymoon. I enjoyed it. Next is Shadow of the Sith, and yeah, you know what? I'm going to put that in B tier as well. Initially, I kind of stayed away from this one. It was just kind of the sequel era, especially Rise of Skywalker, and I didn't really, have an interest to dive into it, but, I heard some praise about it, and I heard it was kind of called, like, the Darth Plagueis of the sequel era. I'm like, well, you know what? Let's try it. The new canon's here to stay. I'm here for the new canon. Like, let's give it a shot. And all in all, I actually ended up enjoying the book. There was parts where it dragged, but overall, it impressed me. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Definitely fleshed out some things in Rise of Skywalker and the sequel era in general. It doesn't fix anything, obviously. Like, the story's still, I think, fundamentally broken with Palpatine returning, but I think given what the cards it's been dealt, it does a pretty good job of dealing them. Next is The Living Force. I'm going to put that in D tier. I really struggled through a lot of that book. I think the last act was where I started to get into it, and I really loved the last chapter, how it sets up the Phantom Menace. But yeah, there was a lot of parts I really struggled with this book, which is sad. I was hoping I would, I loved the prequel era, and I was really hoping to get into this, and I thought I'd enjoy it. And there were some chapters I did, and some parts I really, really didn't. And it was a chore to get through. It's a lot of moments. Next is the Rise and Fall of the Empire. I'm gonna say too, like that was a D tier. I was really excited to read it. I really liked the Skywalker family at war, so I was excited to see take on the Empire. That especially since it was going to combine comics, books, animated shows, and we had so much like shows and content just around the fall or Rise of the Empire with Rebels and Andor and all that. And yeah, it was hard to get through. There was a lot of stuff that I felt like, I'm guessing it was pulling from the comics or books that I didn't either, I had forgotten, or I just had no idea, and it was harder to follow. And it took me a while to get through. It was kind of a chug. I didn't get into it like I was hoping I would. I respect the idea, and I really like that it tried to make it in universe. Like, we have an actual character we know from the movies, writing this. I really like that, but I couldn't get into it, and that was kind of a bummer. But yeah. Next, I was gonna go Reign of the Empire. Mask of Fear. That's a B tier for me. Overall, I really liked it. There were some parts that kind of dragged a little bit, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I just think my biggest criticism for this is the non-binary character. The whole, like, they-them thing. Setting that issue aside for what it is, it's hard to follow on paper. I don't know how to visualize this person because it's talking about they-them. And at first, like, because it's saying they, that, like, especially when it's talking with multiple people in a chapter, like, I didn't know which character it was referring to at many points throughout that point of view chapters, because it was just saying they thought this, they thought that. I'm like, who is it talking about? Is it talking about multiple people? So yeah, the whole, at least when like Queen's Hope had brought in like a Zer pronoun or whatever, at least I knew what character it was talking about. But the they them thing, really difficult to follow along. So those chapters were annoying, and I didn't care for that character anyway. So those chapters were stupid. But everything with Bail and Saw and Mon Mothma, I really enjoyed and thought was pretty solid. Next is Master of Evil. I did a YouTube review, so you can check that out for more thoughts on it. But I put that in B tier. Overall, liked it. I had some criticisms, but overall good. And like I said, if you want more of my thoughts, go check out my YouTube video. I did a nice little 8-10 minute review on it. Next is the Star Wars Padawan book about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm going to put that... Actually, I was going to give it C tier, but I'll put it in B tier. The whole, like, trying to, like, subtly make Obi-Wan bisexual is retarded. But overall, like, the story was decent. I thought it was alright. It was kind of predictable, but it was alright. Easy to follow along. No, actually, we're going to put that in C tier. There were some parts that was just kind of eh. Next, though, I know these technically aren't, like, canon reference books or whatever. They're aside from the universe. They're just about the making of the movies. But, like, they're not really they came out under the Disney era, so that's why I included them. The Star Wars Archive books by Paul Duncan. I'm going to put those in A tier. Those were great to read. Great behind-the-scenes making of books. But the biggest criticism I'd give them is there was definitely, I think they needed a once-over on the edits. There was definitely some spelling errors or grammar errors or whatever. I think at one point, like, Qui-Gon's name was misspelled in, like, the Phantom Menace section. But overall, those were a blast to read. They're really affordable now. I think they're around like $100 for the big tabletop coffee table kind of version. So yeah, pick them up. I encourage it. Next is Mace Windu and the Glass Abyss. I'm gonna put that in F tier. This was a chore to get through. I could not get into this book. I blew through. Like, I started reading this and I'm like, I can't get into this. I blew through it because I knew, like, I'm not going to get into this, so I just tried to get through it as fast as I could. There were some moments where, like, anytime it was delving into Mace's, like, past or his, like, inner machinations or, like, anything on Coruscant, that was fine. I like that stuff. But the rest of it, the world was hard to understand. I couldn't get into the world. And some of the stuff, like it did with Mace Windu, it didn't feel like Mace Windu a whole lot. Like, his cursing was just kind of, like, it felt weird. The writing style of the book was just, I didn't really care for it in general. This was not a book I really cared for. Sanctuary, I'm going to put that in C tier, The Bad Batch. There was some good stuff in here, but then there were some moments where it kind of dragged. All in all, yeah, it's definitely C tier. There was a lot of good characterization stuff here for The Bad Batch. I thought it wrote all those characters well. Yeah, it's a fun story, and I had fun with it. It definitely feels like it could fit in the show. And the last book I read is Leia, Princess of Alderaan. I'm gonna put that in C tier as well. There were some moments where it kind of dragged, but there were some moments where I was really getting into it and having fun with it and enjoying it. Sorry, my throat's about dry, but yeah, this is my Star Wars canon book S tier. These are the ones I've read. I'm sure if I did an updated one a couple years down the road, I would, I'll probably have plenty more to add to it. I probably keep reading some books throughout the next couple of years, but definitely, if you ask me for like Star Wars books to read, I would say pick your. These are the ones I would recommend. Just pick whatever suits you. You know, whether you're a fan of a certain movie or show or era. Definitely recommend the A's and the S's. And yeah, I recommend all the B's. I think they're all, like I said, these are mostly good. I have some minor criticisms, but all in all, I'd say mostly good. But yeah, thank you guys for, I know this is a little lengthier one, but feel free to leave your thoughts down in the comments, whether you agree with me on some of these, disagree with me on some of these. But otherwise, thank you guys for joining in. Darth Momo out, and may the Force be with you. Always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them delight.